to tell you today about the North Guildford Food Bank. This is a grassroots help scheme for low-income groups who are struggling to feed themselves and their families. The North Guildford Food Bank is one of a national network of such brilliant schemes, and actually it was set up by two friends of mine a good 10 years ago. I can take no credit for this. I didn't help set it up and I've never volunteered there, so I must be clear about that at the outset. But I'd like to tell you about it because I think it's just an interesting example of the sorts of things that are good and not so good about our society today. You should also know that Guildford is an affluent area in general with a reputation for wealth, but it does have some pockets of quite severe deprivation. Let me explain how a food bank works. It's really quite a simple concept. If you hit hard times with your family and you literally don't have anything in the cupboard to feed your family with, you can go to a food bank and receive food. It's non-perishable, mostly tins or pasta, rice, dry goods, and you can receive bags of food which constitute an emergency bailout for however many people in your family for 3 days. Okay, so it's a 3-day package. Where does the food come from? It comes from other people who donate food when they've done their supermarket shop. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with the number of the food bins that are at the checkout in your supermarket. It's run by volunteers, people who go there and they endlessly move tins of food about. They will collect food from the supermarket, take it to a storage facility, sort it and then put it into the right bags of different items for each family. When the food bank began, I think it was quite informal and people could just come and say, I'm in need, please can I have some food? Then I think it was quite soon realised that you need some way of formalising this because there are people who are absolutely genuinely in need and there are always other people who think it'd be quite nice to have some free food and that would save them having to work. So they invented a referral and voucher system, or somebody did. In order to receive food at the food bank, you have to have a referral from a doctor, a GP, a health visitor, a social worker, the council, charities, churches, homeless agencies, anybody that is known can be referred to the food bank for food. That person then receives a voucher and they go to the food bank and present the voucher and then they receive what they need. In normal times, there will also be some kind of cafe there. It's often in a church hall on a certain day of the week, not every day. And there'll be a cafe and there'll be people there to give you a free tea or coffee and, crucially, a listening ear. A lot of people need someone to talk to. If you're a volunteer, I'm told it's quite backbreaking, quite hard physical work. You might spend a whole morning in December in a totally unheated lock-up garage outside, sorting tins, so it's a lot of heavy lifting, and writing dates in big letters on the end of the tin because it saves people later having to read the tiny writing where it says the expiry date. I'm also quite amused to know that they have a something extra donation bin at the food bank, and this is where they put all the weird and wonderful things that people donate that really are a lot of use to other people. So for example, after Christmas they have a lot of unwanted luxury food gifts. If somebody donates a glass jar containing porcini mushrooms in truffle oil, well that's all very nice, but a lot of people won't know what to do with those. So that jar is put in the something extra bin and anyone going can look in it and see if they fancy what's there. So what I've just described is what's normal. Unfortunately, as we all know, these are not normal times. Guildford has 3 locations for the food bank, all close to our council housing estates. They're all working, but the cafes are closed. And you have to book your visit there to collect food by email in advance. One good thing is that recently there's a new system by a new charity called Banquet, not spelt the normal way, B-A-N-Q-U-E-T, but spelt with a K, as in bank, food bank, Banquet. I can go online, find Banquet, choose a food bundle, and I will pay for it, and then Banquet will deliver it physically to the food bank, which I think is a brilliant idea. It saves all the collecting from supermarkets, although that still is going on. What is the legal structure and framework behind food banks? Well, quite early on, around the turn of the early noughties, it was realised that they did need some kind of formal structure, and this is provided now by a charity called the Trussell Trust. They gather together Britain's food banks, mostly from in church locations. They also lobby on behalf of them all. This is much more effective to have one voice rather than many. They particularly lobby about the poor implementation of universal credit, which has left people for 5 whole weeks with nothing. If you look at the Trussell Trust website, there are some really interesting findings about what's going on at the moment, and two in particular interested me in these abnormal times. One is that here are some statistics about what normally happens. In March 2019, they gave out so many food parcels. In March, the last fortnight of 2020, the amount they'd given up had gone up by, wait for it, 81%. I found that staggering. The other more encouraging finding is that they have actually been overwhelmed by the generosity of people in this corona crisis. They have had so many volunteers coming forward, companies and businesses donating food, and they are reporting staggering amounts of generosity, which is wonderful to read. And so finally, that leaves me with one question. If we can all be that generous and that concerned about people in need in a time of crisis, why on earth can't our tax and benefit system be better in normal times so that people have regular income rather than having to go for a food handout? Why can't we do that better?